Hello students and welcome to week 6. Uh, During week 6 we're going to be discussing reading techniques and reading chapter 4 of your textbook titled Reading. The learning objectives for this week is to explain the power process, which is notice your pictures and let them go, how to effectively mark and underline a book, the primacy recency effect, the relationship between print books and online materials, how to review a text, and how to locate keywords in a passage. We'll be able to describe muscle reading and how and why it works, how to outline as you read, how to read efficiently, and how to use context to identify unknown words. We'll also be identifying the process for the course and techniques, part of words, strategies for skillful readers, and strategies to use for difficult readings. We'll be also listing effective alternatives to speed reading, suggestive strategies for previewing reading assignments, and advantages of developing a larger vocabulary. And finally, we'll define information literacy and sub-vocalizing. The assignments for this week are to read chapter 4 and the mini research paper assignment, as well as the lecture quiz that is not stated here, but I will be fixing that and adding the lecture quiz, and to watch the pre-recorded video that I am recording now. Here is the link to chapter 4 reading. Most students do not understand what is meant when a teacher tells them to read their text. They believe this means reading the chapter once or skimming the text for key points that may be on the test. This chapter introduces and illustrates the steps of muscle reading. Students will also learn how to highlight a text effectively and how to overcome basic reading challenges such as a difficult text, web pages, and other reading roadblocks. Under here, you're going to find this video that I'm making now. It'll be titled the pre-recorded lecture video for week 6. And under that, you'll find the lecture quiz that you would have to complete by the due date. This week, we're going to have a guest speaker from the library. He's going to make some pre-recorded videos as well, and we will watch those videos on Thursday. Or if you're in my Monday or Wednesday class, you will watch it on the day of your class, Monday or Wednesday. This is the mini research paper assignment. We'll be going over this as well on Thursday in detail. So for now, just skim through it, read it, and know that we will be discussing this on Thursday in detail. It will be due on Sunday, June 28th, as well as this assignment where you will be answering the questions from the guest speaker, and it'll also be due June 28th on Sunday. Like I said, there's going to be more information on the guest speaker and on this assignment on the day we meet, so we will be discussing that in detail. So let's start off with the PowerPoint. I'm going to be using a PowerPoint and the textbook for this recorded lecture. So as I said, we'll be discussing chapter 4, reading. And the first thing this chapter speaks about is the power process, like the last chapter. And in this power process, it is telling you to notice your pictures and let them go. And it states that mental pictures are good, but sometimes get in your way. They can prevent us from seeing what's really there. It tells us to notice when pictures are getting in your way, and then it tells you to replace negative pictures with positive ones. So let's go to the chapter and read that in further detail. So power process, notice your pictures and let them go. One of the brain's primary jobs is to manufacture images. We use mental pictures to make predictions about the world, and we base much of our behavior on these predictions. Pictures can sometimes get in our way. Take the student who plans to attend a school he hasn't visited. He chose this school for its strong curriculum and good academic standing, but his brain didn't stop there. In his mind, the campus has historic buildings with ivy-covered walls and tree-lined avenues. The professors, he imagines, will be as articulate as Barack Obama and as entertaining as Jimmy Fallon. The cafeteria will be a cozy nook serving everything from delicate quiche to strong coffee. He will gather there with fellow students for hours of stimulating intellectual conversation. The library will have every book, and the computer lab will boast the newest technology. The school turns out to be four gray buildings in downtown next to the bus station. The first class he attends is taught by an overweight, balding professor wearing a plaid suit that went out of style sometime during the previous century. The cafeteria is nondescript hall with machine-dispensed food, and the student's apartment is barely large enough to accommodate his roommate's tuba. This hypothetical student gets depressed and he begins to think about dropping out of school. Well, it's no wonder that pictures have this kind of power. Your brain is incredibly efficient at processing images. In a matter of seconds, for example, you can recognize a familiar face and read it for signs of the person's emotional state. If the emotion is not what you expected, then you can find yourself bracing for conflict. The reason? Reality has failed to match up with one of your precious mental pictures. The problem with pictures is that they can prevent us from seeing what is really there. That is what happened to the student in this story. His pictures prevented him from noticing that his school is in the heart of a culturally vital city, close to theaters, museums, government office, clubs, and all kinds of stores. The professor with the weird suit is not only an expert in his field, but also a superior teacher. The school cafeteria is skimpy because it can't compete with the variety of inexpensive restaurants in the area. Our pictures often lead to our being angry and disappointed. We set up expectations of events before they occur. Sometimes we don't even realize that we have these expectations. The next time you discover you are angry, disappointed, or frustrated, look to see which of the pictures aren't being fulfilled. When you notice that pictures are getting in your way, in the gentlest manner possible, let your pictures go. Let them drift away like wisps of smoke picked up by a gentle wind. This power process can be a lifesaver when it comes to reading. Some students enter higher education with pictures about all the reading they will be required to do before they graduate. They see themselves feeling bored, confused, and worried about keeping up with assignments. If you have such pictures, be willing to let them go. This chapter can help you recreate your whole experience of reading, which is crucial to your success. Sometimes when we let go of old pictures, it's helpful to replace them with new positive pictures. These new images can help you take a fresh perspective. Your new pictures might not feel as comfortable and genuine as the old ones, and that's okay. Give it time. It's your head, and you're ultimately in charge of the pictures that live there. So that's basically what it's saying about pictures and when to notice when pictures are getting in your way and how to replace negative pictures with positive ones. The next thing the chapter discusses is muscle reading, and there are three phases. Phase 1 is before you read, and there are 3 steps in that phase. They are preview, outline, and question. Phase 2 is while you read, and it has 2 steps, which are focus and flag answers. And finally, phase 3 is after you read, which has 3 steps, states to recite, review, and review again. Let's go to the chapter to discuss it further. So phase 1, before you read. So step 1, preview. Before you start reading, preview the entire assignment. You don't have to memorize what you preview to get value from this step. Previewing sets the stage for incoming information by warming up space in your mental storage area. If you're starting a new book, look over the table of contents and flip through the text page by page. If you are going to read one chapter, flip through the pages of that chapter. Even if your assignment is merely a few pages in the book, you can benefit from a brief preview of the table of contents. Read all chapter headings and subheadings. Like the headings in a newspaper, they are usually printed in large bold type. Often headings are brief summaries in themselves. For a more thorough preview, read the first few paragraphs and the last few paragraphs of a chapter, or the first sentence of each paragraph. Keep an eye out for summary statements. If the assignment is long or complex, read the summary first. Many textbooks have summaries in the introduction or at the end of each chapter. When previewing, seek out familiar concepts, facts, or ideas. These items can help increase comprehension by linking new information to previously learned material. Take a few moments to reflect on what you already know about the subject, even if you think you know nothing. This technique prepares your brain to accept new information. Look for ideas that spark your imagination or curiosity. Inspect drawings, diagrams, charts, tables, graphs, and photographs. Imagine what kinds of questions will show up on the test. Previewing helps you clarify your purpose for reading. Ask yourself what you will do with this material and how it can relate to your long-term goals. Will you be reading just to get the main points, key supporting details, additional details, all of the above? Your answers will guide what you do with each step that follows. Keep your previews short. If the entire reading assignment will take less than an hour, your preview might take 5 minutes. Previewing is also a way to get started when an assignment looks too big to handle. It is an easy way to step into the material. So that would be step 1 of before you read, which is previewing. Step 2 states the outline. With complex material, take time to understand the structure of what you're about to read. Outlining actively organizes your thoughts about the assignment and can help make complex information easier to understand. If your textbook provides chapter outlines, spend some time studying them. When an outline is not provided, sketch a brief one in the margin of your book or at the beginning of your notes on a separate sheet of paper. Later, as you read and take notes, you can add to your outline. Have fun with this technique. Make the questions playful or creative. You don't need to answer every question that you ask. The purpose of making up questions is to get your brain involved in the assignment. Take your unanswered questions to class, where they can be springboards for a class discussion. Headings in the text can serve as a major and minor entries into your outline. For example, the heading for this article is Phase 1 before you read, and the subheadings list the 3 steps in this phase. When you outline, feel free to rewrite headings so that they are more meaningful to you. The amount of time you spend on this outline step will vary. For some assignments, a 10 seconds mental outline is all you might need. For other assignments, fiction and poetry for example, you can skip this step altogether. And finally, step 3 is question. Before you begin a careful reading, determine what you want from the assignment. Then write down a list of questions, including any questions that resulted from your preview of the materials. Another useful technique is to turn chapter headings and subheadings into questions. So for example, if a heading is transference and suggestion, you can ask yourself, what are transference and suggestion? How do transference relate to suggestion? Make up a quiz as if you were teaching this subject to your classmates. If there are no headings, look for key sentences and turn them into questions. These sentences usually show up at the beginning or ends of paragraph sections. To read at a deeper level, ask deeper questions. Unless you're reading solely to gain facts, go beyond simple yes, no, or true and false questions. Create questions that prompt you to define key terms, separate the main points from minor details, and make connections between ideas. Often these questions will have more than one correct answer. Have fun with this technique. Make the questions playful and creative. You do not need to answer every question that you ask. The purpose of making up questions is to get your brain involved in the assignment. Take the unanswered questions to class, where they can be springboards for a class discussion. Demand your money's worth from your textbook. If you do not understand a concept, write specific questions about it. The more detailed your questions, the more powerful this technique becomes. So the second phase is while you read. And there are 2 steps like we mentioned, and the first step is focus. And focus states you have previewed the reading assignment, organized it in your mind or on paper, and formulated questions. Now you are ready to begin reading. It is easy to fool yourself about reading. Just having an open book in your hand and moving your eyes across the page doesn't mean that you are reading effectively. Reading takes a mental focus. As you read, be conscious of where you are and what you are doing. When you notice your attention wandering, gently bring it back to the present moment. There are many ways to do this. To begin, get in a position to stay focused. If you observe chief executive officers, you will find that some of them wear out the front of their chair first. They're literally on the edge of their seat. Approach your reading assignment in the same way. Sit up, keep your spine straight, avoid reading in bed except for fun. Avoid marathon reading sessions. Schedule breaks and set a reasonable goal for the entire session. Then reward yourself with the enjoyable activity for 10 or 15 minutes every hour or two. For difficult reading, set more limited goals. Read for half an hour and then take a break. Most students find that shorter periods of reading distributed throughout the day and week can be more effective than long sessions. Visualize the material. From mental pictures of the concepts as they are presented. If you read that a voucher system can help control cash disbursements, picture a voucher handing out dollar bills. Using visual imagery in this way can help you deepen your understanding of the text while allowing information to be transferred into your long-term memory. Read material out loud, especially if it's complicated. Some of us remember better and understand more quickly when we hear an idea. And get a feel for the subject. For example, let's say you are reading about microorganisms, a paramecium in your biology text. Imagine what it would feel like to run your fingers around a long cigar-shaped body of the organism. Imagine feeling the large fold of its gullet on one side and the tickle of the hairy little cilia as they wiggle in your hand. In addition, predict how the author will answer your key questions, then read to find out if your predictions were correct. And the second step for phase 2 is flag your answers. As you read, seek out the answers to your questions. You are a detective, watching for every clue. When you find an answer, flag it so that it stands out on the page. Deface your book. Have fun. Flag answers by highlighting, underlining, writing comments, filling in your outline, or marking up pages in any other way that helps you. Indulge yourself as you never could with your grade school books. Marking up your textbook offers other benefits. When you read with a highlighter, pen, or pencil in your hand, you involve your kinesthetic senses of touch and motion. Being physical with your books can help build a strong neutral pathways into your memory. You can mark up your text in many ways. For example, place an asterisk or an exclamation mark in the margin next to an especially important sentence or term. Circle key terms or words to look up later in the dictionary. Write short definitions of key terms in the margin. Write a Q in the margin to highlight a possible test question or passage that you don't understand and question to ask in class. Write personal comments in the margin. Write mini indexes in the margin. Write summaries in your own words. Rewrite chapter titles, headings, and subheadings so they are more meaningful to you. Draw diagrams, pictures, tables, or maps that translate text into visual terms. Number each step in a list or series of related points. In the margins, write notes about relationships between elements in your reading. For instance, note connections between an idea and examples of that idea. If you infer an answer to a question or come up with another idea of your own, write that down as well. And then finally is phase 3, and there's 3 steps. And the first step is recite. Talk to yourself about what you've read, or talk to someone else. When you finish a reading assignment, make a speech about it. When you recite, you practice an important aspect of metacognition, synthesis or combining individual ideas and facts into a meaningful whole. One way to get yourself to recite is to look at each underlined point. Note what you marked, then put the book down and start talking about it out loud. Explain as much as you can about this particular point. To make this technique more effective, do it in front of a mirror. It might seem silly, but the benefits can be enormous. Reap them at exam time. A related technique is to stop reading periodically and write a short, free-form summary of what you just read. In one study, the informal retrieval practice helps students recall information better than other study techniques. Classmates are even better than mirrors. Form a group and practice teaching one another what you have read. One of the best ways to learn anything is to teach it to someone else. In addition, talk about your reading whenever you can. Tell friends and family members what you're learning from your textbooks. Talking about your reading reinforces a valuable skill, the ability to summarize. To practice this skill, pick one chapter or one section of one chapter from any of your textbook. State the main topic covered in this chapter. Then state the main points that the author makes about this topic. So for example, the main topic up to this point in this chapter is muscle reading. The main point about this topic is that muscle reading includes 3 phases and steps to take before you read, while you read, and after you read. For a more detailed summary, you can name each of the steps. Note, this topic point method does not work so well when you want to summarize short stories, novels, plays, and other works of fiction. Instead, focus on action. In most stories, the main character confronts a major problem and takes a series of actions to solve it. Describe that problem and talk about the character's key actions. The turning point is the story. The second step is review. Plan to do your first complete review within 24 hours of reading the material. Sound the trumpets. This point is critical. A review within 24 hours moves information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory. Review within 1 day. If you read it on Wednesday, review it on Thursday. During this review, look over your notes and clear up anything that you don't understand. Recite some of the main points again. And finally, the final step is review again. The final step in muscle reading is the weekly or monthly review. This step can be very short, perhaps only 4 to 5 minutes per assignment. Simply go over your notes. Read the highlighted parts of your text. Recite 1 or 2 of the more complicated points. The purpose of these reviews is to keep the neutral pathways to the information open and make them more distinct. That way the information can be easier to recall. You can accomplish these short reviews anytime, anywhere if you are prepared. Conduct a 5-minute review while you're waiting for the bus, for your socks to dry, or for the water to boil. 3 by 5 cards are a handy review tool. Write ideas, formulas, concepts, and facts on cards and carry them with you. These short review periods can be effortless and fun. Sometimes longer review periods are appropriate. So for example, if you found an assignment difficult, consider rereading it. Start over as if you had never seen the material before. Sometimes a second reading will provide you with surprising insights. Decades ago, psychologists identified the primacy recency effect, which suggests that we most easily remember the first and last items in any presentation. Previewing and reviewing your reading can put this theory to work for you. So let's go back to the PowerPoint, and I just went in more detail over this slide. Again, there's the 3 phases. Each phase has steps to complete. So this is just a summary of those phases. So it's just to go over it again. Phase 1, before you read, change the appearance of the text to suit you. Cut the ads and other distractions. Know available tools to make your reading more productive. Some web browsers like Safari comes with a built-in reader mode similar to readability. These are just when we're reading web pages and ebooks. Phase 2, while you read, access the table of context, use navigation tools, search the text, follow links to definitions and related information, and highlight and annotate. And finally, with web pages and ebooks, after you read, go for long-term memory. Ebooks can help you create instant summaries. Some softwares allow you to view all your highlighted pages at once, such as Amazon Kindle and MindTap. You can also copy passages and paste them into a word processing file, but be sure you also copy your sources. So here gives you an insight on how to take muscle reading to work. So what do you have to read for work? Usually it's like reference manuals, training materials, meeting minutes, brochures, annual reports, job description, articles, emails, and more. You need to determine your purpose. So gain a skill, create a program, improve quality efficiency, gather information to complete a task. Ask yourself, how can I use this? Read to find answers, turn text into a to-do list, create or change your plan based on what you read, and share with coworkers and compare notes. So that is right here in 4.8, muscle reading at work. It's your responsibility to read over this. But as you can see right here, you tab right here the table of content, and it just gives you everything about the chapter. So find muscle reading for work and make sure you read over that. So when reading is tough, the chapter states to read it again, look for essential words, hold a mini review, read it out loud, talk to someone, stand up, skip around, find a tutor, use another text, know where you get stuck, and stop reading. And that also can be found right here when reading is tough. And it goes into more detail in each of the steps, and it'll be your responsibility to go over that. So getting past roadblocks to reading. Schedule time for reading. Make choices about what to read, which states to focus on what creates the most value. Deal with interruptions. Attend to people first, plan for interruptions, and use pockets of time. And remember what you read. Write informal discovery and intention statements. Copy the passages you want to remember. So let's go to the textbook, back to the table of content. And here we have getting past roadblocks to reading. So even your favorite strategies for reading can fail when you are reading with bigger issues. Those roadblocks to getting your reading done can come from 4 major sources: finding enough time to keep up with your reading, making choices about what to read once you find them, getting interrupted by other people while you're reading, and remembering the main ideas from what you read. For the solutions of each of these problems, read on. So next are the solutions. Make sure you go over each of these solutions. So it's remembering what you read, dealing with interruptions, making choices about what to read. But it's easy to find right here, getting past roadblocks. So the textbook also talks about develop information literacy. So it says to generate ideas for your topic, discover your purpose, consider primary and secondary sources, get to know your library, search for information with keywords, turn to people as sources of information, evaluate information, and use information. So we're going to go back to our textbook and go over this. So developing information literacy. Information literacy is a state of skills that you can use for many purposes. For example, you might want to learn more about a product, a service, a vacation spot, or a potential job. You might want to follow up on something you heard on the radio or saw on TV, or you might want to develop a topic for a paper or a presentation. In each case, success depends on information literacy. Information literacy happens in a continuous cycle. You ask questions and gather answers. Those answers lead to more questions, which lead to more research. At each stage, you dig deeper. You understand your topic is in a more refined way. You ask better questions and find better answers. To begin, choose your topic with care. A topic that's too broad, or is hard to cover in a single presentation or paper. A topic that is narrow won't lead you to many sources of information. The trick is to find a topic that falls in between these two extremes. So the information that I'm about to go over now is going to help you with the mini research paper assignment that you have for the week. That's going to ask you to come up with a main question and some supporting questions for your research paper. So get ideas for a topic. You can use the web to get some initial ideas for a topic. Go to a search engine such as Google or Bing or DuckDuckGo. In the search box, enter a keyword followed by research paper topics. For example, astronomy research paper topics. Another source of topic ideas is AllTop. It lists hundreds of websites organized by major topics. You'll find links to the 5 most recent articles on each site. If you are writing a paper or preparing a presentation for class, ask your instructor for guidance in choosing your topic. She or he may have requirements about how many sources and what kind of sources to use. Choose a topic to meet those requirements. So the topic for this your mini research paper, as you remember, is a careers research profile. The title of your research paper will be career search profile because you're going to be asked to find a career that you're interested in. So for example, in the search box, enter a keyword followed by research topics. So for example, nurse, doctor, lawyer, research paper topics. So for the purpose of our assignment, you're going to pick a career, and next to that career, you're going to write research paper topics, just like the reading stated. So for this assignment, the topic is already given to you. So discover questions about your topic. One of the early steps in muscle reading involves asking questions. Start with your main question about the topic you choose. This is the thing that sparked your curiosity in the first place. Answering it is your purpose for doing the research paper. Your main question will raise a number of smaller related questions. These are supporting questions. They also call for answers. Discovering questions. An example. Suppose that you are interested in the economic recession that began in 2008 in the United States. You know that one factor in this recession was the mortgage credit crisis. This occurred when banks loaned large amounts of money to people to buy a house, even if these people had little money or a low credit rating. Your main question might be, leading up to the mortgage credit crisis of 2008, what led banks to lend money to people with poor credit history? Your list of supporting questions may include the following. What banks were involved in the mortgage credit crisis? What is the criteria for a mortgage-worthy borrower? How do banks discover a person's credit history? And what are the signs of a poor credit history? So find sources. Next is find sources of answers to your questions. Sources include books, articles, websites, and people you can interview. Start with sources that give an overview of your topic. One is an encyclopedia. Through your campus or community library, you might have full access to Encyclopedia Britannica and other encyclopedia databases that are not available to the general public. To find out more, make both an online and in-person visit to the library. So that's the speaker that we're going to have is the librarian, and he's going to introduce you guys to the library and the systems in place that you guys have for free to access books, journals, peer-reviewed articles, and just a whole bunch of information that is going to help you not only with this paper, this mini research paper, but it's going to help you throughout your career as a student at ASA College and other papers that you're going to have to do. So another option is Wikipedia. Because the quality of Wikipedia articles vary so much, they are not acceptable sources to use for a final paper presentation. However, many Wikipedia articles mention other respected sources. So concerning Wikipedia, you guys are more than welcome to go to Wikipedia and get an introduction if you want on your topic. But when you scroll all the way down of Wikipedia, there's going to be there a list of sources, and those are the more important sources. So as a general rule, I would say that do not use Wikipedia in your papers when you reference them. When you make your reference sheet, stay away from using Wikipedia because at the end of the day, I can go into Wikipedia right now and change information. So you can get an idea of what topic that you're looking for, just please remember that Wikipedia is not an acceptable source. You can scroll all the way down of that page and look at the acceptable sources of where that Wikipedia got the information. And those sources might be acceptable. So another one is Google Books and Google Scholar. Offer more ways to find sources. For each site, enter your topic and the keywords for your questions in the search box. Google Scholar is especially useful for finding peer-reviewed articles in professional journals. Following are more encyclopedias and search engines to check. So these are just a list of different websites and encyclopedias. But again, I would not use any of these as the formal references of your paper. This can just be an introduction to your topic and where it can lead you to more acceptable sources. So you might find that certain sources appear over and over again in the results that you get from your searches. These are important sources for you to find and read for yourself. So here it's saying, like, let's say you go to Wikipedia and you go to answers.com and you go to Dogpile, just to give you three. And you notice that in your topic, this same, let's say it's a journal article, is being referenced of where these three entities got their information from. That should indicate to you that you need to read that source, because if it's in three of the search engines that you found, then obviously it's important, and obviously that should be one that you should read. So refine your topic. A common problem at this point is to discover that your topic is too broad. Fortunately, there are several ways to narrow it down. One option is DMOZ, which is a website. What you'll see first is a page with a list of major categories. Click on any of these to find narrower topics or subcategories. Enter some keywords in the search box to narrow the topic even more. Clusty works in a similar way. But again, you guys already have your topic, so it's not something that you're going to have to do for this paper, but it is something that you may find yourself having to do in other papers throughout your education. Refine your questions. As you skim these sites and other sources, review the main question and supporting questions that you asked at the beginning of your research. You might choose to drop some of these questions, reword them, or ask new questions based on what you've discovered so far. So this is just basically saying, and it's completely normal, as you research, you may find other information that you didn't even know, and that may cause you to refine your paper and refine the questions that you're asking, and that way you've narrowed it down, and that also helps you narrow down your topic and basically have you what's the word I'm looking for, hone in on that topic, and it's just more concrete. So refine your keywords. One crucial skill for information literacy is using keywords. Your choice of keywords determines the quality of results that you get from search engines. For better search results, use specific words. Entering Firefox or Safari will give you a more focused results than entering web browsers. Reading strategies or note-taking strategies will get more specific results than study strategies. Do not type in your whole research question as a sentence. The search engine will look for each word and give you a lot of useless results. Use unique keywords. Whenever possible, use proper names. Enter Beatles or Radiohead rather than British rock bands. If you're looking for nearby restaurants, enter restaurants and your zip code rather than the name of your city. Use quotation marks if you're looking for certain words in certain order. Audacity of Hope will return a list of pages with that exact phrase. Search within a site. If you're looking only for articles about college tuition from the New York Times, then add New York Times or the website to your search box. Remember to think of synonyms. For example, hypertension is often called high blood pressure. When you're not sure of a keyword, add a wildcard character. In most search engines, the wildcard character is an asterisk. If you're looking for the title of a film directed by Clint Eastwood, and you can't remember the name, enter Clint Eastwood directed with an asterisk. Look for more search options. Many search engines also offer advanced search features and explain how to use them. Look for the word advanced or more on the site's homepage and click on the link. If in doubt about how to use your library search engines, ask your librarian for help. Dig deeper into the web. When people talk about the internet, they usually mean the free web, sites that anyone can access through popular search engines. However, this adds up to less than half of all websites. Other sites are created by organizations for their employees, partners, or subscribers rather than the general public. Together, these make up the deep web. The deep web offers several benefits. Here you will find articles written by recognized experts for an audience of scholars. Plus, deep websites often have their own search engines, such as the ones listed here below. So to access such sources, go to your school or your community library. It will probably have an access to a number of deep websites. So I would recommend, when it talks about the deep websites, like I said earlier, in the library, We have access to thousands of books, thousands of peer-reviewed journal articles, thousands of normal articles. So I would recommend, while you're at ASA and you're doing research paper at ASA, to use the ASA library, because the peer-reviewed articles that you get from the ASA library are going to be acceptable sources for your research papers. Get to know your library. Remember that many published materials are available in print as well as online. This is another reason to visit a library. Start by talking to a reference librarian. Tell this person about the questions you want answered and ask for good sources of information. Also, visit your library website. Remember that libraries, from the smallest one in your hometown to the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C., consist of three basic elements: the catalog, the collections, and the computer resources. Since we are in remote learning, and at the end of the day, ASA uses its library as an online database, and like I just stated, we're gonna have the librarian speak in class when we meet up, and he's gonna offer you guys information on how to access all of that, and that's where I recommend you go for any of your research papers. So talk to people. Make direct contact with people. Making direct contact with people can offer a welcome relief from hours of solitary research time and give you valuable hands-on involvement. Your initial research will uncover the names of experts on your chosen topic. Consider doing an interview with one of these people, in person, over the phone, or via email. To get the most from interviews, schedule a specific time for the interview and a specific place. If you are meeting the expert in person, agree on the length of the interview in advance and work within that time frame. Enter the interview with a short list of questions to ask. Allow time for additional questions that occur to you during the interview. If you want to record the interview, ask for permission in advance. When talking to people who do not want to be recorded, be prepared to take handwritten notes. Ask experts for permissions to quote their comments. Be courteous before, during, and after the interview. Thank the person for taking time to talk with you. End the interview at your agreed on time. Follow up on interviews with a thank you note, and be sure to cite your interview as a source for your research. So let's say you're going to pick nurse as your career, and you have an aunt for a nurse. You can completely interview her, ask her questions, and then you can use whatever you want from that interview in your paper. And then at the end, you're going to have to cite that interview, and there's a correct ways on how to cite it in APA format, which we're going to be discussing with the librarian and go over with in the next couple of weeks. So evaluate information. Some students assume that anything that's published in print or is on the internet is true. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Some sources of information are more reliable than others, and some published information is misleading and mistaken. Before evaluating any source of information, make sure that you understand what it says. Use the techniques of muscle reading to comprehend an author's message. Then think critically about the information and be sure to look for the following: the publication date. If your topic is time sensitive, then set some guidelines on how current you want your sources to be. So for example, that they were published during the last 5 years. Credibility. Scan the source for biographical information about the author. Look for educational degrees, training, or work experience that qualify this person to publish on the topic of your research. And bias. Determine what the website or other sources is selling, the product, service, or point of view it promotes. Political affiliates or funding sources might color the author's point of view. So for instance, you can predict that a pamphlet on gun control policies that's printed with funding from the National Rifle Association will promote certain points of view. Round out your research with other sources on the topic. The best way about going this is always using the library resources. You'll know there, for the most part, everything will be acceptable, and you should have the option to pick peer-reviewed journals. And once you pick peer-reviewed journals in your search engine, you should be fine with your sources. So evaluate internet sources with extra care. Ask the following questions: who pays for the site? Who runs the site? How is the site content selected? Does the site support claims with evidence? Does the site link to other sites, and how can readers connect with this site. So as you know, there's a lot of bloggers out there and they have their own websites, and sometimes you Google a phrase and their blog comes out and you'll read what they're writing and it sounds like they know what they're talking about and it sounds like what they're telling you is fact, but it's not the case. So just, make sure, and these are some questions to look for or to ask when looking at websites. And now distinguish between primary and secondary sources. In addition, distinguish between primary and secondary sources. Primary sources can lead to information treasures. Primary sources are first-hand materials, personal journals, letters, speeches, government documents, scientific experience, field observations, interviews with recognized experts, archaeological digs, artifacts, and original works of art. Primary sources can also include scholarly publications such as the New England Journal of Medicine. Secondary sources summarize, explain, and comment on primary sources. Examples are popular magazines such as Time and Newsweek, and general reference works such as the Encyclopedia Britannica. Secondary sources are useful places to start your research. Use them to get an overview of the topic. Depending on the assignment, they may be all you need for informal research. So this goes back to what I was saying. So it's okay to look at Time and Newsweek and Encyclopedia Britannica, but when it's time to write your paper and it's time to reference your paper, just make sure that you're using more primary sources and respected secondary sources. So take notes and reflect on them. Take careful notes on your sources. Remember to keep a list of all your sources of information and avoid plagiarism. Be prepared to cite your sources in footnotes or endnotes and in a bibliography. Also make time to digest all the information you gather. Ask yourself, do I have all the answers to my main question? Do I have answers to my supporting questions? What are the main ideas for my sources? Do I have personal experience that can help me answer these questions? If a television talk show host asked me these questions, how would I answer? On what points do my sources agree? On what points do my sources disagree? Do I have statistics and other facts that I can use to support my ideas? What new questions do I have? The beauty of these questions is that they stimulate your thinking. Discover the pleasures of emerging insights and sudden inspiration. You just might get hooked on the adventure of information literacy. So, this completes our pre-recorded video for the day. Make sure that you complete the quiz after watching this on your due date. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me.